Morning. We're going to get started at 9:30 so that things are successful to start with. We'll see how we end up. This is my first meeting. I'm delighted to be here. I'm delighted that you're all here as well. We'll start with the karakia. I'm going to start with an apology as well because my te reo is dreadful. So you're all going to say it with me, and then after a while you're all going to lead it one after the other. Okay? So I will start, but you will do it with me. In fact, Annalisa has quietly volunteered to lead it with me, so turn your mic on, Annalisa. Okay, off we go. Whakatakata te haru te uru, whakatakata te haru te tonga, kia mahina ka te uta, kia matara te tai, eha ki mai te aktiakatua, e tita te huka, he audme, hea muri ora, mauri ora, ka pai. That wasn't so bad. Fabulous. So welcome everybody. Just a couple of matters before we get started and before we go into meeting proper. Firstly, I would like to acknowledge the contribution that Annalisa has made to this committee over the last, how many years, Annalisa? 6, 7, 8? Almost 6. Some of the success and some of the conversations we're going to have today and some of the outcomes that we're going to be striving for have come as a result of her hard work to drive this particular committee into a format and form which enable us to do the work we do. And I don't want that. I want it formally recorded that I am very thankful for what I am governing now and the work you have done. So thank you very much. I appreciate that. Okay. There are no apologies. Everybody happy? Just from a governance perspective, I am not as formal. I don't normally move. I normally make sure by acclamation, if we're comfortable, we'll just minute it. Okay. So there are no apologies. Is everybody comfortable with that? We'll say minute it. All right. You have the minutes of the previous meeting in front of you. Are there any amendments that any member would like to make? Are there any matters arising from the minutes that aren't otherwise covered in the agenda? Okay. Are there any items of general business any member would like to bring up? No? Good as gold. We'll have a quick look at the action list. Here we go. We have the draft Treasury Policy Report, which was referred from the 5th of August. That's here today, correct? Report on Revolving Credit Facility is here today in a different format. Terms of reference are there for your review. Work Programme is here. Privacy Act Training, future workshop for councillors. That's a matter carried forward, correct? Yeah. Staff numbers, people headcount, circulate graph, we get that. Sensitive expenditure report is here. Internal audit report, risk management dashboard is here, and the risk management risk register is here. Everybody comfortable with that? Terms of reference is there for your noting. I would like, after this meeting, to have a conversation with you about that, Ali, because I've got a couple of comments I'd like to make in that, but I'll bring that back. Okay. Executive, apologies. Sorry, Lydia.
It's just on the action table, the report on draft Treasury Policy and revolving credit facility. Those two will stay on the action list until after the LTP amendment.
Sure.
So we've actually got we've got a paper in here that talks about a different credit facility. but the Treasury policy will be following on post LTP amendment.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. Right, we're going to go through to the Executive Director's report. Ali, I'm assuming that's you.
Thank you, Bruce. Good morning. Look, I'll largely take the paper as read. We've got attached in there the People Dashboard and the Audit and Risk Work Programme. Happy to take any questions on those, but I thought it's just worth noting as well that where PwC are at with the rates remediation, they're working to the timeframes that we set out, and the indicative numbers that we provided to Council are in keeping with PwC's findings thus far. So happy to take any questions on the People Report or the Work Programme.
Okay, questions? Yeah.
My question is just on the People Dashboard and holiday remediations, and so I just wanting to get my head around what is the estimated remaining liability that we still have, and just make sure that we've fully got that provisioned.
So with the holidays pay remediation, we had actually accrued for everything as at the end of last financial year. So we're just working through with probably some of the former employees, getting in touch with them. So we're still holding those amounts in the balance sheet. So there'll be no liability back to the P&L.
Okay, cool. And look, just for the feedback, I think I like the dashboard. I think it's really great, and it gives all your information you need in one place. It's great.
Thanks, Lydia.
Okay, a couple of comments from me. In relation to, and in accordance with some of the conversations, some of the commentary in the people update is functional as opposed to referencing risk. Okay, so from your perspective, Steve, this is information for you. My view on this would be, unless it references something which is a developing people risk, we don't need to see it at this kind of depth. Okay. So that will give us a better feel for what I think we should be referencing and talking about here. So, for example, if you've got a significant resource requirement and we're not being able to fill it, and that means it is creating an ongoing risk for council business, that would be something that we should be having a conversation about. But if things are progressing as you expect, then I think that the Audit and Risk Committee doesn't need to see it at that depth, okay? That's only a view from the chair. Everybody happy with that? Trace, safe, Sam? Mm-hmm. All right, good stuff. Lydia? Yep. Good, okay. Thank you. All right, excellent. Health and safety. Welcome, John.
Good on, Mr. Chair, committee members. I will take the report and dashboard as read. I will go through the report briefly and just highlight our really good points that have been happening in the last quarter. The Health and Safety Wellbeing team have relocated to their own space towards the staff cafeteria. This has brought in a real big increase in interactions, resulting increase in guidance and support across all of council. It's been really beneficial, and our team are really enjoying the interaction. Secondly, a big ticket for us is securing a no-cost, no-increase platform transition to EHS Core by the Ideagen company. This does bring in significant improvements across the platform, with things like enhanced usability, offline access, AI functionality, a single app, bringing better involvement with our people and for our people to have better data. So we're really looking forward to that. The team is really looking forward to the sandpit that we're getting in the next couple of weeks, so we can actually have a play with it and put it out to our people to give us some feedback on how they think it works before we do anything. Building on the positive outcomes from the mid-term external review, the Health, Safety, Wellbeing team engaging really good with staff, best guidance, support, influence across all functions. We're really having a really good time. And obviously there is some other stuff, obviously with the interactions because of negative social media and public posts. We've also had the use of an external facilitator to provide some guidance and support for our staff across affected functions. So a couple of things, the worksite visits, site visits are starting up with elected members and ELT, a really good opportunity to understand work as imagined versus work as done, how that interacts, what actions we can drive out of it, and how we can actually help all of us understand and be better at it. It's a great time for health, safety, wellbeing at the moment. Training and workshops, we've done a couple around community engagement and safe management of meetings. Doing really well. We will repeat this training to cover people and staff who haven't been able to get there and do that. Another big piece of work that is sitting there is the GIS location of interest layer. Now this is really a significant piece of work that will improve staff safety when engaging with the public and identifying locations that do pose a safety risk when conducting our work. So the system's being trialled with regulatory and reserves team, and the feedback is identifying any gaps before we roll it out to the wider council. Our critical risk teams with aggression and violence towards staff and contractors, there have been an increase in reported incidents lately around inappropriate action directed towards staff and contractors while they're undertaking their duties. We will continue to work with the police and ensure that any incidents regarding further action are addressed promptly and that the appropriate support is available to the affected staff. We are working through our critical risk program at the final end. Each team will report quarterly to our critical risk program manager, who will then on report to ELT and this committee. Health and wellbeing. A few things over the Christmas period. People obviously didn't get some usual rest and recovery, mainly due to the high level of illness at that time. However, coming into this last month, we've had a decrease in people having sick leave, which is really good. It's, people are being resilient and doing some really good work looking after themselves. Our peer support Talk It Out facilitator, we're doing extra training starting next week around facilitator numbers to bring it up to around 10. Expanding that team will reduce the workload on the current facilitators and increase access to early intervention, peer support, and strengthen the awareness of psychosocial and psychological safety. Our tiered support structure with our TELUS group is working really well. Continues to provide those really good internal and external support pathways. Key themes over the last 3 months been around anxiety, family and relationships, mental health concerns, and some work-related issues around relationships and conditions. Couple of health promotion preventative activities. Our hearing, Brenner Sincock Hearing will again provide free health checks, hearing checks during March. Always essential for our people that are working in plant and around noisy areas. One of our promotion activities didn't really meet our final scale around fitness passport, but we're working with our sport and recreation team around how we can provide an alternative to the wellbeing and fitness options. Our psychosocial risk management, we have developed some guidelines for both staff and managers. They outline how we identify, assess and manage the psychosocial risk. They explain what the risk actually is, why they matter to health, safety and culture, the role, clarity and responsibilities of both staff and managers around the expectation for creating a safe, healthy and psychologically supportive environment. We have had these peer-reviewed third party, so that will be shared with our health and safety champions, also with our psychosocial risk group, customer service team, for feedback around is there any improvements, any gaps that we want to see, and then we'll put them to the committee and have them reviewed as well. That's the end of the report, and happy to take any questions.
Just to add to that, we've become part of the Business Leaders Health and Safety Forum, which is a national body looking at particularly at the changes in the health and safety in the workplace amendment and what that might mean for us. At the moment, that's still pretty much in its early stages with a lot of uncertainty about some of the definitions that the bill needs to develop. We'll keep you abreast of that as that develops. There are definitely significant changes in that space that the bill puts forward, but it's probably too early at the moment to give other than a speculative picture of what that might mean or not mean for Selwyn District, but we're keeping close to that. Thank you. I've got a number of questions here. We'll go Annalisa, Sam, then Glydia. Annalisa.
Morena Kapai, thank you for the report and the presentation, and as I've kind of said over many months, great that we're still continuously trying to improve. So I've got 4 things through the report. So the first thing was the leadership walkabout. So October to January, we've got a 0. I realise that was over obviously the holiday period. So do we have a number for February? But I guess looking to you, John, again, reiterating my message around what support you need from this committee to encourage management that the importance of those leadership walkabouts, and whether you'd got around to setting the leadership team and governors a KPI and an actual measure for the year, because 4 or 5 months in, it's not a great number, it's not a great look, and it's the importance of it around that visual felt leadership and health and safety culture. So I guess reiterating the message that if you need extra support from this committee to re-emphasise the importance of those walkabouts, realising that it was a holiday period. So just That's probably a takeaway point. Second one, again, great reference to the, potentially the incoming changes to the Act around the importance of critical risks. So can see from the report, can hear from your korero around the great work that's being done around the critical risks. When looking at the report though, I think maybe a couple of pages in, that's right. So we've got our 6, 7 critical risks. I get a feeling that we really understand those risks and that there's a lot of work being done around them. But most importantly for this, for the Chief Executive, for governing groups, for SLT and PCBU, is that we need to have some level of confidence that you're actually managing those critical risks. So you've said that we've got a number of controls. Active construction maintenance sites, there are 48 controls, but what I'd like to know as a governor is it actually reducing the risk? Is it actually mitigating the risk? Are those controls actually working? So therefore, perhaps the reporting would look good with some kind of RAG status or some kind of, you're doing all this mahi, but is it actually working, right? Are you actually reducing the risk? Because it's one thing to know there's a whole lot of controls, but are they actually working? I think the next page, there's reference to 6 MTIs. And obviously, as this group will know, that an event starts with, a near miss, first aid, a lost time injury, and then an MTI. So the serious of an MTI can be quite broad. So I think whenever we make reference to an MTI, we probably just need a little bit of more context and background to that. And the last comment was actually a question. The EAP data, I know it's extremely confidential and it's pretty limited on what we get, but there is a reference around work and personal. And so I just, when that report comes in next time, if we can kind of reach out to them and go, look, if we benchmark against similar organisations at this point of time in New Zealand with, lots going on, is that a normal split between personal and work, or is that something we should be concerned about as employer as a PCBU and, you know, the caring of our kaimahi. Because on face value, it looks quite high, but again, I don't know whether that's just...
Against benchmarking, are we in the same percentage
Yeah.
or are we actually low?
I think that would be good.
We'll take that
and
on
I'm
board.
sure they could tell us that because it's not a confidential
For sure.
data. But
Thank you. This one's probably an offline answer, but just to ask it, the social media post, if we can have a little bit more clarity on that. The critical risk, lone remote workers out of 600 odd staff, I think would be doing really well if there were only 2 incidences in that region. Either we've got superhuman staff or perhaps they're not reporting when they are. Would you be able to speak to what actually warrants a lone worker? It sounds like a daft question, but I'm struggling with the two.
Look, to be fair, it is probably a bit of both of those things, Councillor. We do have superhuman people who work for us, and we also do have, people who don't report things because depending on what they see as being critical is, a personal thing. We want people to report everything. Lone workers, depending on where they are, they could be lone workers in town because of the nature of what their task is, a single person. When we talk about lone workers, often we think immediately to people who are working, in the middle of nowhere, checking on waterways, checking on things like that. However, depending on what they report, is what we can give you data with. With our new platform, we are driving really good interactions so that people report everything, even the really good stuff, which people don't often report, but also the little things that they think, nobody really cares. I care, and my team cares. The data that we can report gives you a valuable insight. So we'll take that on board and work with that.
Cool. If we could have a little chat afterwards, that'd be awesome. And hearing, this one confused me, the hearing tests. I mean, great that we're doing them. But can you give an example of plant that our immediate staff are exposed to, or is this encompassing contractors as well that are working under our umbrella?
Yeah, we have a duty of care against everybody. So,
Yeah.
But there are a lot of people, and it might just be the environment where people are. They already suffer from hearing loss through other things. Coming to us ensures that we aren't inflicting worse on them.
So it would be sort of to gauge a baseline. Yeah,
sure,
awesome,
for sure.
Awesome, cool. Thank you.
Thanks, Sam. Lydia?
Some of my things around the GIS, the location of interest, and I think that's a great piece of work to give our staff good information when they're going out into the field. And my question around this is, and it kind of conflates a little bit into the peer support as well, is support for elected members, because I see us also at risk as well because we are out in the public, and if there are places of interest that we need to know about, I think the information sharing between us and the organisation is really important. The treatment after events, and so, I read that and go, 6 events were reported where someone required medical treatment. And what I'm going to is actually and it's a bit like what Annalisa was saying, is what is that aligned to? Because if I see 6 and I try and even that out across the risks that we have there, to me, I'm looking at what is the critical risk that is most pressing for us? Are we seeing consistent injury in active construction maintenance sites, which you might, being on the tools, but to me, I want to see what ones are pressing issues and are we seeing any rise in risk in any of those critical. So, yeah, great to see that. And I think just future going forward, it'll be really great to see what are the ones that are starting to flag for you and are we seeing an increase through that. And my question is around overdue investigations. Why? And are we at risk of not closing those off? And are we prioritising those to close them off, or are there ones that, do you prioritise the open investigations? And do we have a target time frame to close those out?
every week, my health and safety lead produces a spreadsheet that gets sent to those investigators that are overdue. We reach out and provide support and help assist them in closing off those actions and actually determining the actions, but also getting them involved in actually finalising the action and closing it out with their team. So we do that on a weekly basis. Some take a wee while to close out, just to the nature of the action. But yeah, we do look at that every week.
Tracy.
I just wanted to ask a couple of things about near misreporting, because I know this can be a difficult one to get people reporting near misses. If there's a struggle to get people to report actual things, you know, the Superman syndrome, are you comfortable with where the staff are broadly with understanding the importance to our safety program and their safety of reporting near misses?
I think we all are comfortable being uncomfortable. We always are striving for better reporting around the simple things. You know, we do a really good thing around critical risk, and we do a lot of really good stuff. And our focus for the last couple of months is also about the simple stuff that people don't report, because it is a simple thing, like a paper cut or I saw something lying on the ground, but I walked past it. So engaging with people to understand that you know, the standard you set is the standard you walk past. So we're doing a really good lot of work around that. And this is where these site walks with elected members and staff is really good, because sometimes people only see a very narrow view. Our process is about engaging with everybody around most of the stuff that people walk past. So we're never satisfied in reporting, Councillor, but we're really looking at improving it with our people.
Thanks, John. And the other one is that in these 28 near misses, is there a trend appearing there? Or we're a big organisation, 28's a small number, so I don't expect a trend, but there isn't anything that this is building on from previous?
No, because of the nature of our thing, we are a pretty scattered approach. Of course, when we have, you know, a lot more being sent to us, the data actually does resolve. Is there a trend around what we're looking at? And that improves what we're looking at. At this stage, it is a pretty scattergun approach to what people report. Where we think there's a real need, we are out there in the trench and having a look around what is required.
So I guess to tie that all together, what do you need to help increase the understanding and therefore reporting that near miss reporting is actually informing us to stop the bigger things happening, so that we are ahead of some of those risks?
And I think that is just the engagement around everybody. It's holding everybody to account, including ourselves. We're working on those with our team and with staff around how we do that.
Yep.
And we've done really big leaps forward in that. Some people just don't think that it's a real big thing because it's a small thing. But all of the small things add up to the big thing, and we're working really, really comfortably around that.
Right, thank you.
Just a quick comment, Soph, before you from Ali.
Tracy, just wanted to note that, just following on from some of the things that John's covered there, at ELT every week we have a health and safety update on our agenda, and encourage people where there are incidents that may happen, whether that be social media or whatever that is, that people do record them. So we are getting that data going through Vault that enables John to report it.
Thank you.
Sophie.
Thank you very much, gentlemen, and everybody else who's here as well. Got a couple of questions. One right at the beginning, you mentioned about EHS Core and AI functionality. And I just wanted to, I'm sure you've already checked it out, but AI being a bit of a risk, and we know that there's instances where people have used AI for mental health, for instance, and it's taken them down the wrong track.
Yes.
So If you could speak to that, that'd be great.
Yeah, look, the AI functionality is around what we actually need to do in an investigation.
Right.
It provides a prompt. It doesn't override anything. Excuse me. The AI is to help people who aren't confident, and that's why we provide support and guidance, but also around people who want to engage and they want to be fully in the platform. And I suppose that when we get the actual sandpit in the next week or so, we'll be able to look at that and report back around the functionality of that. Yeah, health and safety is definitely not placing all of its eggs into the AI basket.
Fair enough. So there's not getting like private information in there or anything like that?
No, not at all. Absolutely.
Okay.
Categorically zero.
Always good. I mean, I was pretty sure that it wasn't, but sometimes you say the things out loud to check. In terms of the training that you've got listed there, there's a few that are probably worth bringing us a lot in there as well, especially as we get in towards annual plan and
for sure.
and then LTP.
We'll work with ELT and the Chief Executive around how that looks in your calendars. We don't want to overload anybody and cause psychosocial mental health issues.
It's fair enough. And on that one, that was my last question, was actually around looking at the Talk It Out and Tell Us stats. And I was there were a couple of things. It was like, in some places it looks like the Tell Us is decreasing. And then I was like, well, is that because people aren't finding it useful, or is that just that we're not needing it as much at certain times a year? Hopefully the latter.
It is the latter. People are actually, the feedback we are getting verbally is it's a really great platform. Mm-hmm. The ability to use it on our phones and have direct contact with the Tell Us people has proven really valuable. People are also very private in what they want to share with us.
And that's fair enough.
And look, we get that.
Yeah.
And we get that. And what we can present is the stuff that we're able to, but you can rest assured we are providing a lot of really good, valuable support around that.
Nice. The last question was around, obviously it fluctuates around there, and it's going to be quite hard to work out, like you said, the private information and everything. But is there anything, do we get anything back that gives us information about like particular risks that we can actually do something about? Like if it's to do with the dates that rates payments are due and things like that, you can't actually change that. But if are there any risks that come back and you think, okay, this is something that we can smooth out somehow?
Overall, Councillor, there are themes around things like relationships with colleagues and managers and stress and workload. But they do vary because different times of the year, obviously, when rates strike or when works are going on down the road, or when the weather's bad and we have some critical stuff that we need to do. So. Yeah, but we can ask and see if we can take that data down a wee bit.
It's fair enough. I mean, mental health's a funny beast, and it's going to be hard to find anything. I was just wondering if there's any patterns. So yeah, thank you very much.
Okay, thank you. I've got a few comments, John, just in relation to health and safety, because and there's a great report, by the way. There's some good stuff in here. I'd just like to push it into structure now, because I think we've done an awful lot of work in relation to a whole lot of programs around getting these things embedded in the business of council. If I look at the health and safety program, which is a pillar of the business of council, I see it as a very simply as its purpose is to ensure that everybody goes home healthy and everybody goes home well. And that's the kind of outcomes that we assess ourselves against it. And it's certainly one of the outcomes that needs to be blended into your work, Steve. And if I look at it, I say, well, I mean, there are central to that obviously are your critical risks, because that's where the majority of that everybody doesn't go home well and everybody doesn't go home healthy happens. There are peripheral bits to that, but your identification of your central risks is critical. And they're in your papers. If we were maturing this reporting, you would be looking at that, and then we would be looking at structuring the conversations around critical risks and your actions to improve outcomes. It talks a lot to some of the stuff that Tracy was talking about in relation to near-miss reporting, because the more mature it becomes, the more you get a feel for it. Certainly references Annalisa's commentary around how we embed this and structure it. If we had to respond to every single legislative requirement on health and safety, we would be paralysed by the requirements. The critical risk reporting, in my view, is the most important thing you guys do in relation to managing around that. And that refers to as well in your wellbeing program as well. So keeping people well to do their job and identifying those risks and identifying how you are improving outcomes would be the area that I think we want to start concentrating this committee on. So really it's what you are doing in those crucial areas to make sure that outcomes are embedded. And then over time, you can report to us about the programs, but the progress you're making from a cultural perspective in seeing near-miss reporting improving, i.e. getting more numerous, and incidents reducing. And we'll probably at some stage require some form of internal audit over what you say you're doing and what people are thinking. Now, I know that you continually interview staff. We'll get an independent organisation to give us some advice to make sure that that kind of thing is happening. But if we do that, I think that people will start to embed. I mean, the beauty of your job, doing it well, will mean that they actually, you won't have to monitor it because they will be doing it and these things will be happening and you would have done a fantastic job. So what I'm trying to say is that what we're looking to do is move on a continuous improvement program with you. And one of the ways around our critical risks and our critical outcomes and those sorts of things, and the programs that you talk about in your report actually fit in with those critical risks. And I think we talked about a number of them. I mean, one of the ones that you talk about a lot, obviously, is the engagement we have with the public. That is a critical risk because there can be outcomes which are not conducive to people going home well and healthy. But when we talk about lone worker, we probably want to be a bit deeper in that, because the reality of it is being a lone worker of itself isn't a critical risk. It's what's happening in that environment which is the critical risk. And that's how we deal with it. So what are the programs we use to identify and mitigate and things like that? So over time, I'd like to think, Steve, that as Chief Executive, you run a critical lens over it and say, okay, how's that integrating with the work we're doing? So that the health and safety team aren't isolated from the work of the council, they're embedded in the work of the council. So that when we report in the future, we start talking about those risks being embedded in different places, so we can understand that better and govern it. Am I making myself sort of clear there, John?
Absolutely.
Yeah, good.
Absolutely.
All right. Good. We're on a journey here. We're not this won't happen overnight, but we wouldn't have been able to have these conversations without all the work that's gone on previously to get yourself here. Yep. And now we're starting to push it into the functions of council, the critical functions of council, so that we can see it.
Yeah, and there is the term, Bruce, and you know that culture does eat strategy for breakfast.
That's
if you
right.
have good culture, people will do it, even when people aren't looking.
Yeah, and the reality of it is that it's not your objective to work yourself out of a job, but it is your objective to mature this to a point where you don't have to engage so much, right?
Yeah. Absolutely.
Okay. All right. Thank you. Really appreciate that. Now I've been overruled by Ali here, and I'm not going to walk against it. So it's not my normal that I would receipt reports that are in an agenda, but apparently I'm going to now because Ali's bigger than I am. So, we'll resolve. Do we have a mover and a resolve that the Audit and Risk Committee receive the Health and Safety and Wellbeing Report? Do I have a mover? And a seconder? Lydia, Sam. You'll all get a turn, by the way. We will go back to the Executive Director's report, and I had a mover in Tracy and a seconder in Sophie. Thank you. Not being flippant. Right. So in the same vein, great piece of work, by the way, team. Thank you. In the same vein, we'll move to the Risk Management Work Plan and Progress Report. And just to make sure we get this in the right place, do I have someone move that we accept the Work Plan and Risk Management Work Plan and Progress Report? Thank you, Sam. Seconded, Annalisa. Perfect. Right, open for discussion. Welcome.
Hello
Hello, Chair and Committee. Thank you very much for having us here again today. I'll just give you a few points from our report there that we've given you. The risk appetite workshop that we all had together just before Christmas, we've pulled together the appetite levels, and that's in the report and also in the updated documents. So the risk policy and framework, we've taken the opportunity to update those following the feedback that we received, and also some feedback from one of our consultants. Also, following on from feedback from the committee last November, we've continued developing the risk dashboards so that you can get improved transparency and understanding of our top risks. And also, just to note there that our next reporting, we aim to be doing exception reporting if that as a committee is what you agree, and then we can delve into particular high-rated risks going forward. And we'll use our appetite settings so we can see if we're aligned with our appetite or not. So hopefully have more discussions around that going forward as a committee. So any questions? I'll pass over to you, Chair. Thank you.
Annalisa,
First start. Pretty quick, aren't I?
you're quick on.
Thanks, Sonia. Great work. Again, continuously improving the maturity of our risk management, I guess, function and processes. Great to see the work that's been done on risk appetite. Excuse the pun, at risk of confusing or having an academic conversation, but I know that you will get this, Sonia, so bear with me. But I really like what you've done with the risk appetite kind of statements, and how you have got I guess you've got a proposed risk appetite being the cautious, moderate, minimal, and then you have got a nice description that actually says, well, what does that actually mean? You've taken it one extra step, which I thought was really interesting, and I haven't seen anyone brave enough to do this before. So you have actually said, well, and if we take health, safety and wellbeing as an example, not only have you said that it's cautious and our decision-making focus is conservative and we'll have a strong focus on our people's safety, you've actually then said what the lowest residual risk is. And so for health, safety and wellbeing, you've said that if we have a risk appetite of here, which I always use in kōrero when I'm kind of explaining the concept, but I've never been brave enough to put it in writing, is that you've said that therefore we will only accept a low residual risk for health and safety. And because of the impact, and this is, bear with me, this is where I might lose you, but I won't lose you, Sonia, you're an expert, but the heat map that we have, if we were to say that we're only ever going to accept a low residual risk over health, safety and wellbeing, if you look at the impact on our heat map, and the impact of a fatality or serious harm is always going to be critical or catastrophic, we will never get there. We'll never actually be able to. So I guess you've got a decision of, that's my kind of warning, is be careful if you're going to be brave enough to say for each of those categories of risk we're going to only accept a low risk, because I think you'll never get there. You'll never get there for health, safety and wellbeing because of the catastrophic nature and so I guess it's a decision for the committee on whether you're comfortable with that, of it being an aspirational type goal that, we want to try and get to, a kind of low residual risk, or you're not comfortable with never actually, almost being in breach of it, I guess. Health and safety is probably a little bit of a nuance, but I've never seen that being kind of brave enough to actually say, right, this is...
And I guess with all of these tools that we have, we use them as tools and guidance. So it's to help us and support us in decision making. So we have an appetite, but we'll also be considering tolerance within that appetite. It is a tool rather than a stick that we will beat each other against, I think.
Yeah. I think that was, all right. just moving on to the policy and framework look really good, like the amendments to that. I think I just had, just one comment. You're comfortable, Steve, under your role, responsibility of the maintaining a responsibility of effective management of all types of risks. I guess the buck does stop with you, but yeah. It was quite a strong affirmative as opposed to, a little bit softer and, your monitor, but I guess the buck does stop with the chief executive, so. Yeah. Oh, sorry.
I think you should respond, Steve.
Yeah, look, I think the direction of travel you'll see within these documents is we're trying to be really clear with our language, with our intent, and we're not trying to hide behind fluffy words. So I'm really comfortable with this because similar to the health, safety and wellbeing conversation we've just had, that actually this is the core role of leadership here, is to set up a culture, and by doing that, the intent that we put in our documentation has to drive us to behaviours, and so being really clear with words is, I think, really important. So yeah, I stand behind that.
Sam, did you have your? Yep.
Sorry, I wasn't wanting to butt in. I just have a comment. Awesome. It's really good to see that our risk workshop laid out really clearly, to be honest. Yeah. And that was the conclusion I came out of that meeting, that, yeah, awesome. And then also love inherent risk and residual risk matrix layout too. That's quite cool to see on how what we face, how we deal, and what the outcome of both are. So, no, awesome report. Thank you.
Thank you. Trace.
Sorry. Just a quick question about the bylaws, strategies, plans and policies part. And what is my question? I know what it is. I just need to frame it for you. Sorry. Major consequence, likelihood, likely. Can you give me some examples in the last sort of 12 months or so of, can you give me an example in the last 12 months or so?
I think it might be best if we come back to you, if I can speak to the owner directly with those risks and the control owner. We'll come up with a couple of examples, but also noting that we have a new head of regulatory, and so that risk is currently in review. So we do need to review that and make sure we've got it assessed accurately. So it's potentially not, the best fit right now, but we'll come back to you with some examples.
Cool, thank you. I guess what I've seen stuff come across council relating to policies and that sort of stuff. So I have an understanding on that side of it. I guess the bit that I have a gap with is around the bylaws part of it. And so, that's not necessarily a big thing here, but from a council-wide governance point of view, just having a bit more clarity around that. Thank you.
Thank you. A couple of comments from me. I agree with you, Steve, in relation to this particular paper and this part of your business. This is your business. It is the mechanics of the whole business of council, right? The reality of it is that it always intrigues me that we codify great management, because what we are doing here is codifying the experiences of great managers and great CEs, i.e., and it comes from the process that is identified in commerce and in management around when you're dealing with a project, identifying all of the things that could go wrong, anticipating how they could go wrong, managing the systematic bit, which is the bit we can manage, and then having the capacity to pivot to deal with the unsystematic, the bit that you can't always plan for, because there are often things which are outside your control, but you have processes and routines in place that you can default to. This piece of work, in my view, is probably the most crucial for this agenda today, because we're getting through the business which will therefore govern how we expect you to behave, Steve. Well, not we. Council expects you to behave, but I will certainly govern you against, right? In relation to risk appetite, I'm not surprised that we ended up where we were in relation to the workshop, and I would not be surprised if it's consistent at that level. But what will happen is that the council will become more comfortable with doing more and more. That means that you'll take on more and more projects which may appear risky, but they won't be, provided we get the right frameworks in place to govern them. So it's really, your ambition will expand, but your appetite for taking a lot of risk will remain the same, is my general view. I'm intrigued that we've got such a significant policy framework, and I would suggest, Steve, that you reflect on this, because if we did this every time we embarked on something, we would spend most of our time planning and not a lot of time executing. But I appreciate, Sophie, that you have to put it down to make sure everybody is aware of what is involved so that you can cut your way through it, right? And I think over time we will mature and your teams will begin to understand what is important to them and what is not important to them, or what they don't necessarily have to anticipate, but they will need to be able to mitigate. So if I look at it and I dug into some of the, and I have been a CE in the past, so I can appreciate this is the way in which you proceed, but the question is, you're asking us to recommend to council that we recommend to council that they approve the updated policy and framework. If we do that, you will be confined to it and you will be governed on it. My question is, do you want to take another month or another couple of months to reflect on what it is you want to emphasise in these frameworks and what you can actually leave out, because that is just a matter of good management? Because I think some of the bits at the back, Sophie, are good management. Sorry. You're all getting new names. Yeah, apologies. So what my question is, what do you want to emphasise and what do you want to remove to a guideline so that you have a very pithy, succinct framework policy that at that point but it's manageable behind the scenes. I'm comfortable if you say, no, you want to get on with it and get that through, but you will be, we'll drag it out in the event of, and my view would be is you don't want to be constrained by that. You want to be able to, you guys want to have the capacity to implement around something a little bit more direct, if you understand what I mean. Steve, I'm going to ask you, and then...
Can I just be Sonia's voice? This framework's been coming for a long time. It is linked to ISO 31000, which is good practice risk management in all organisations in Australia and New Zealand. It is just a guideline. So I have been a kind of an advocate of pulling this framework together. I don't think by having the comprehensive guideline that it is, because it's set in different sections because it is quite prescriptive, I don't think that will be a handbrake to...
If it's a guideline,
yeah,
make it a guideline. If it's a policy, make it a policy. My view would be is that policy should reflect what everyone does and guidelines should be there, should support that in your office, Steve. Okay? That's how you guys expect the behaviours and what you will train towards and what you will encourage people to do. Because if it's in a policy, it's a policy, and they'll drag it out and they'll say, why didn't you do? Where is the? What is this? That's my comment on it. You need the flexibility as a chief executive to be able to train towards and implement, because your guidelines may change with changing tech and changing environments and changing processes. And you don't want to keep coming back to council to get it changed. But I'm not suggesting you remove the capacity to act. You just don't stick it in your policy. All right, but that's only my personal view. this all has to be embedded in your council processes, but it's where you want it seen. So I agree with you, Annalise. I'm not suggesting we detune it. I'm suggesting we get it in the right place. Guidelines you can then, as a CE, can change in a changing environment. So if Sonia comes to you, see, got that one right, Sonia. So if Sophie comes to you, if Sonia comes to you and changes it, in my view, and suggests, well, things are changing and this is better practice, you don't have to keep coming back.
Thank you, Bruce. There's probably two parts to my answer here, and I'm first part of the answer is like we've benefited greatly from where we started when I first started on this committee about 2 years ago. The work that we've done to build the framework, to build the policy to a point where we're at the point of saying, well, we're comfortable, and the feedback that's happened around this table has been really beneficial. That's why we're here today. And so a number of the things that we're building in place around assurance and around our process and policy are being driven from this. And so this is the direction of travel that we've worked in, and a number of the systems we're putting in place are to give effect to this. So the first part is and I think the framework, it's not a policy, it is a framework, and we do have a degree of flexibility within a framework to change and pivot. So that my first part of the answer is this is already driving behaviour and this is already driving performance. The second part of my sort of response though is I'd be silly not to listen to the committee, and based off your question, Bruce, to not listen to the feedback on your question from the committee members to go, do you want us to take a little bit more time in your wisdom and spend another 2-3 months making sure we actually are in a place to deliver this and making sure this is the right thing? Like, I'm really keen to hear from the members of the committee what you think. So that's my two answers. Like, I'm not silly to not listen to feedback, but I'm also hopefully giving you confidence that this is already driving behaviour change and already driving system change in our organisation. So
The implementation of it shouldn't stop what you're doing, right? This is the engine room of effective project management in your groups, right? Because everything you do proactively to develop the business and the assets of the council will be shot down this framework, right? We call it a risk management framework, but I call it a good management framework, right? Because it's the measure 3 times cut once conversation, right? Let's see if we can, everything that we can possibly plan for, we plan for, and then we have mitigating circumstances otherwise, right? And so getting this right from a management and governance perspective, in my view, is pretty important. And the only reason I say that is because I have seen in the past where things go wrong, an independent third party walks in and says, well, I've got your policy here, and I'm going to audit you in relation to your policy, and bayoneting the wounded, what I call it, after the fact, is quite damaging for all of the good work you're trying to do. There's no such thing, in my experience, as getting it right every time. There is only the capacity to plan and to execute and to be courageous around planning and executing. So I don't want to hang you on it, Steve. I want to make sure that it's there. I want to make sure it's fit for the purpose. I want to make sure that the members here are really comfortable that this is going to be that which we're going to look at. But I also don't want to be in a position where we end up in a position where we are all looking at you saying, well, item 5 and if I go to, for example, there's some quite big tables in the framework and in the policy, and you look at it and say, how does that relate to risk category descriptions, inclusions, and risk category IT security and human, and I go, well, in there you could be shot on something that was not anticipated, and that's where So we lose that perspective, and what we end up doing is that if we govern you on it, you start doing all of it, and we start slowing down, and things don't happen, and capital doesn't get spent. So it's a fine line you walk between doing the business and us being comfortable. And I reckon that you guys owe it to yourself after this enormous body of work to get it in a position that we're happy, that we're all happy with. But this is just me talking, and I just want to hear from the team. So.
Yeah, I did actually have a different question, but I'll stick with this for now. I'm happy with it. If people want to take more time to just go, okay, what does this look like in practice? Like if run it through a few internal thought processes, thought experiments, run it on a whiteboard. Okay, what does this look like if somebody came in and tried to hold us to this?
I think the question will be, would you do this practically? You take your best manager, who's your best, and talk about and say, how does this fit with what you're doing, and what is it that you think is relevant and not relevant to what you're doing? It's that consultative process. Some of them are going to not have a view, but others will have a significant view about, well, if I did all of this, I'm never going to get anything done. That's not the outcome that we want to be looking for. What we want to do is, so you actually must do these things to affect good outcomes, but we don't want to be an impediment to those good outcomes. That's kind of where I think that's what you're trying to get it.
It's not trying to figure out, how do we wiggle out of doing stuff? It's like, does this actually look like something that we do and that helps us be our best for our residents and stuff?
I think you've got a really, really effective framework and policy here. Now I want to see what we want to know from our perspective if it's really going to hit the road and do what you say, Steve. And if it does, then we're happy to sign it off.
Should I ask my other question or wait until you've done the round?
Oh, just...
Okay, it was around step 5 in the risk management framework, where we have risk acceptance, risk transference, and then it's got risk avoidance / exploitation and risk reduction and enhancement. I was just wondering, how does that work in practice? What does that look like? Because, I don't know, how much discretion is there in there, that sort of thing. On diligent, it's 74.
Very good question. Thank you very much for that. And so these extra words have come from our risk consultant. I think avoidance and exploitation are quite strong words. I think we will definitely take this away and have a look to see if this is actually fit for purpose.
That's a really good example of what does that really mean in practice?
Yeah.
And so if we're going to consent this, we better make sure we know what it means and how it's going to be implemented. That's kind of where I think you guys need to get to. Tracy.
The question about the whole thing. I think the thing about policies is that do policies reflect practice? And what is our practice? And so if we don't have policies, if we don't have a policy in a particular area and there isn't a consistent way of doing that in practice by everyone, then that's a really big problem. So I guess what I'm saying is I'm happy for more time to be taken, particularly if it's about looking at how we are actually doing things under these policy headings. How are we actually doing them? And are we in the process of improving how we're doing things? Are there things that need to be improved? And how does the policy that we are writing accommodate that current and moving picture? So those are the two things. Policy for policy's sake, this may stun people. I'm not a fan of policy for policy's sake. But when you, as I say, if you tie it back to have we got a consistent approach to how we are doing something, then let's have our policy reflect that. But don't tie us so that if we are in the process of changing our practice, we can still do that within that policy. And if you need more time to do that, then I think take more time. So I hope that provides some clarity from my perspective.
Sam?
Cool. If the suggestion is more time, that's great. I'm reasonably comfortable with this, though, to be fair. I would. But then, to touch on what Bruce stated, it's sort of up to the interpretation of the person executing it, of whether or not they go through every single word in the document or apply it where need be. But as long as individuals are running SWOT analysis on risks, I'm happy, as long as we can be in agreement with that. But really, I know it's our role for it to be falling onto us, but really is, are you comfortable with it, Steve?
Yeah. I think that's about we wouldn't be having this conversation if you didn't present a really good document.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. Well
We
done.
would be having a different conversation, which would be, we don't understand what you're doing. The problem you have, you present something good, we're all going to look at it. And I think this is where I spent a lot of my time in the papers, because I was excited about what I was looking at, because in reality, this is your continuous improvement program. Okay. Annalisa?
Yeah, fine. I'm just feeling for Sonia because I think she's probably spent, I don't know how long, 18 months developing this, and then she brings something amazing to us and we've gone, does it have to be that good?
I think that I'm certainly not belittling what's happening. You've got a
Yeah.
brilliant document.
Yeah.
What you're not going to do the next piece of work.
Yeah.
The people that are going to implement it are going to feed back the practicalities of it, and you'll be able to refine it.
I think just to help Sonia so that she's not kind of leaving going, I'm not really sure what the outcome of that corridor was. I think when I have developed these, and I come from 20 years of risk management, right? So it's my bread. So I'm pretty biased. So that's why it's great to have diversity of thought. When I write these documents, the policy is always a very simple document, and I kind of call it the who and the why document. So we don't get hung up on it, but it's like, it's the scope, it's the what, the who and the why. So what is risk management at Selwyn District Council? Who is responsible? So what's your role, Steve, which is obviously what we were just testing you for, and why are we doing it? So what's the value proposition on why we do risk management? How do we get value out of it? And that's it. So for me, a risk management policy is 2 pages. Then you get to the framework, which is the how-to document, and that's the methodology, that's all the work in there. So maybe the takeaway for Sonia might be, look, we're happy with the framework because that's the how-to document, it's a guideline, but maybe see if you can simplify the policy so that, coming to Bruce's point, if that's tested through an external lens, can it be simplified just so that... is that a clear...
Yeah, the benefit of us both is that Annalisa wrote them and I had to implement them as a CE, right? And what I have found is that overly complex policies generally got ignored. And that is not what we want here, right? Because this is your Bible. Once you get it right, this will be... So I think you actually do a bit of consultation and feedback, because once it's there, Sonia, you're going to have a high expectation the teams will be doing this, and that's what you'll be training, and that's how you'll be implementing, and that's what we will be trying to improve. So getting that little bit right to start with, so that they're on board with you when you march in and say righto, they'll say righto, we're into it. And you need a little bit of resistance because you are changing concepts. Lydia, I haven't heard from you.
It's the benefit of sitting here and being quiet for a minute. I get to hear from everybody else. I think Bruce and co, you're right. Sonia, you've put up a really good policy and great framework. And when I look at these things, framework, I'm really pretty happy with the framework. I think you've done a really good job in there. And noting that when I look at a framework, I see it as a guiding principle, and it gives you something to look at and fall back on as you go through your practice. Policy, to me, is actually what we use. It's almost to hold to account, and that is where we talk about, are you comfortable with what is in here, because that is what we are going to effectively bring back and go, did you follow this? And those are the lines of account. And I think, it's really important for us to have those lines of account for policy. And it's that interrogation of process. But like you say, if it's too much, is it going to be glossed over and not followed? And that is going to lead us into a different situation as well. And so sometimes I think about, and this is just my practical brain, the simpler and the easier things are to implement, the easier it is to follow, and the more likely you're going to end up with Chief Executive and ELT and management picking this up and going, yep, this is a great document and I can follow and understand this policy really well. When we get to big policy, you read the first couple of pages and this is just me, and I start to scan through. And so for me, the lens that I take to policy, and this is what I will be applying to all of the policy that we work through, is the practical lens to it. What does this mean in practice for us as governors and for us as our staff? And are we all on the same page of what this means, and what is the impact on the organisation of this? So that is the lens that I apply to all policy, and I think that this is an amazing start, and this is why we're interrogating it so much. You've given us so much to look at, but I think we can really reshape that policy to be something that is amazing, and the work you've done here is great.
So the practical application of this when we get it ultimately will be Steve should be able to look at every project, or council should be able to look at every project and say, what are we doing? How are we doing it? What could go wrong? What are the risks of it going wrong? What are you doing about managing it? And what are the things that you can't manage? So if you can't manage them, what are your pivots? And then you get down to the nuts and bolts of cost and things like that. And that's what you're trying to teach here. And that's what I would like. And that should be embedded. So to get it embedded, you get the frame. We spend a bit of time so that everybody knows that when it fronts up at council, those are the questions that are going to be asked, and they're already prepared for it. And you can pick up any document and say, well, I actually can't see what you're supposed to be doing in here because it hasn't followed the relevant framework. And that's what you're trying to teach people. So that's kind of why I think give it a bit. I don't know if you need that much, Steve. You tell me how long you need because it's going on the work program. Do you want to bring it back for the next meeting? Do you think that's time enough? That's 2 months?
Yeah, look, I think I want to respond to the feedback from the councillors and Annalisa and yourself. And I appreciate that, I guess, like you say, you don't get these kind of conversations when you put up a rubbish paper. And I think what I do want to acknowledge is the hard work, because this is hard work that's gone over the last 2 years to get us to this point. So it feels like we're at the end of the first stage, which is we've done the mahi and we're shifting the organisation towards a different direction of doing business and providing greater assurance for councillors and our community around the way we do things around here. So in principle, I'm relatively happy, but I've also listened to you, and the benefit of listening to the experience around the table would suggest that by the next meeting, we can do a little bit of a deep dive and go back in through the business and go, how are we confident we're absolutely ready and we're delivering this? I can list off a range of things that we have done that have been driven by this approach already around the quality of our council reports, and our templates is one example where a number of these things are actually giving the governance a test to go, have we covered this off? Have we covered risk off? Have we considered the appetite? Have we considered the consequences? So I can list a whole heap of things, but can I list everything? And I think that's your point, Bruce. Can I list everything that I'd be held accountable to if we adopt this? And I probably can't list everything right now.
I'm not asking you to list it. In fact, you may go away and come back and you may talk to the teams and say, actually, we don't need to change it, right?
Yeah.
I want a level of assurance before we put it up that we've just gone around one iteration of that.
Yeah.
And done.
I'm comfortable with a 3-month assurance process. By the time this comes back, we can all, and ELT can all give you assurance that this is how we do things.
And make no bones about it. Yeah, you're into the first phase. The next bit's going to be harder because it's getting it embedded, and and so. And with every confidence, given the fact that you guys have actually come up with a very good policy and framework, I've got every confidence you'll get it done. But that'll be a journey, Sonia, because that's not something that happens overnight. Changing behaviours, changing outcomes, that sort of thing. Yeah. And then when you've done that, you'll have to do it all over again because you want to continually improve it. It's like painting the Auckland Harbour Bridge. Right. Okay, so we'll go have someone move that we receive it and we note the proposed appetite levels and that we recommend that management take it back for one round of consultation with your management team, however you want to do it, and then bring it back and we'll put it on the work program for next meeting. And I'd just like to say the fact that we spent so much time is because it is very good. Okay, so thank you.
I'd just like to say thank you everyone for the feedback because that's really, really helpful and yeah, will set us in a really good direction. Thank you.
Good stuff. All right, has someone happy to move that? Lydia, seconded. Tracy? Good stuff. And we're all in agreement. Thank you. I have. It's happening. Yeah, let's have a look at it now. I'm assuming that Ali knows what's going on here because I can't read that from here. And if I put these on, I can't read it either. So.
That's just updating what
Yeah,
you've said.
I can see it. I'm being cheeky. Right. Thank you. Good governance here. Right off time. So let's get back on track while we get that sorted out. Where am I? Treasury report. Everybody, we've got the Treasury report there. Somebody move that we're happy to have happy to receive that. Thank you, Lydia. Seconded, Sam. Right. Yep, you're doing things in your sleep. Good as gold. Welcome, boys. Sorry, men, gentlemen, people.
Good morning. I think most of you have met Dale Lovehead. He's our team leader, financial accounting. He actually does most of the hard work that I just come and talk about to you guys. And we thought it would be a good opportunity for Dale to get in front of you as well and present his good work. So Dale will be presenting both the Treasury report and the revolving credit facility, standby facility paper after this. So I'll hand over to Dale.
Kia ora all. So we've got the Treasury, the Treasury report for December, or as at the end of December for Q2. So good news story, borrowings is down 15 mil from what it was at the end of Q1. So we repaid it 15 mil, and that is just due to having some excess cash sitting in our bank account that was not required for that liquidity purpose. We also have the 10 mil facility, the on-call facility with Westpac, which remains undrawn. So overall sitting in a good position, both debt and cash-wise. Interest rate swaps, nothing new. We've maintained status quo and haven't actually put anything in place since June. So we are compliant there through to the end of May and had just over or just under 52 mil in terms of cash and cash equivalents in our bank account. So moving on to page 84 of Diligent, we've got the split of our debt. Obviously we're carrying a little bit of we're carrying a couple of commercial papers, so short-term debt for Selwyn Water specifically, with the intention that that is going to be able to be either transferred or repaid by Selwyn Water. That is obviously pending Council's decision around LGFA funding and signing off the guarantee to be covered off at a later date. We are compliant from a liquidity ratio perspective. However, obviously with the mix of our debt, we're going to have to look at that standby facility, which I'll talk about later. Now moving on to page 85, we've got a debt position forecast, LTP. There's three curves there, LTP with Selwyn Water taken out, and then also the management forecast with the Selwyn Water repayment that was proposed as part of the transfer agreement, which was to repay the debt transferred over a 3-year period starting in April this year. So yeah, the curve looks a little bit funky. It's a bit of a shark tooth. We will be reviewing that as part of the long-term plan to get a more sort of linear, more smooth forecast in terms of that cash position. But at this stage, that is the most accurate representation of where we are tracking. Interest rate risk management on page 86. There's not been a lot of change there because we haven't taken out any swaps. So still got 79% covered with interest rate swaps of our debt, and sort of moving into the last slide there. There's nothing really that's changed so much because we haven't drawn any long-term debt options. So still got the same amount of borrow notes on held in council, and the weighted average is still the same as Q1 at 4.61%. Last page, obviously we've got Treasury policy that's going to be reviewed as part of the LTP for 27-37. So we need to look at both our debt limits or total borrowing limits and our payback ratios. Both of those are quite prudent at the moment and would be worth reviewing to allow us to have a bit more flexibility in our financing. And then the other thing that was tabled in previous meetings was Bruce suggested a revolving credit facility. We can't actually do that with having debt sitting with a different entity to our actual cash position. So we have the standby facility, which I will talk to next. Any questions?
Thank you. Okay, questions on the Treasury paper? There's a general sighing around the table. I just think I always find it intriguing that the finance team always say when we haven't drawn down on a debt that's a good thing, but in my view that means we haven't spent the capital either. That means we're probably a bit behind on our capital program. So
yeah, that's exactly what I was going to sort of allude to, just adding what Dale had said. So I mean, our borrowings are lower than what we'd expected, and I think when we sort of go forward into the annual plan and where that lands from a capital stance, it's working with Tim Mason and his team to make sure we've got a good idea of the forecasting of that programme that then enables us to look at that debt modelling, and also taking the cell and water information out of the equation as well. So there's still quite a lot of work to be done on that piece.
I do make the point that you guys report what is going on, and I've been in your position and I love keeping hold of the money as well, so don't worry about that. But the reality of it is that we have a program that we try and finance around and look at our swaps, and if we're not delivering on it, we can actually get ourselves exposed there. So from that perspective, I know you guys will be tightening up with the teams on that and saying if you really are expecting, you better make sure that you can actually deliver. And that because we may be raising funds for it, and that puts us at risk. Okay, that's kind of the deal.
Yeah, I guess part of the difference in not requiring the borrowings is we've had a lot of DCs received this year too. So that's helped us in terms of our cash position. So we've lent on that a little bit.
Sorry guys, somebody just put our faces up in front of me here, and that was a dreadful outcome. Okay. Are there any other questions for the finance team?
Yep.
Sam?
Are we any further in knowing when Selwyn Water Limited will have access to LGFA funding? Or is that an offline conversation?
We are working through that process just now, Sam.
So no idea on date?
We're hoping to bring a briefing back on the 18th to look at where LGFA are at around getting the funding for cell and water. It's quite a long process.
I can imagine. Thank you.
without breaching your confidence, I do have a bit of experience in this area with another organisation. There is a bit of a queue forming at LGFA, so there's quite a bit of activity around this particular thing. Lydia,
I always
sorry.
like to ask this question, and normally Neil gets it, but since Dale's here making his debut, I guess the risk is, and I look at this, and it's the same thing around capital delivery and not borrowing, and making sure that we are sitting across the risk of both of those. And I always look at the liquidity coverage if we shift that capital timing. And to me, that always sits as a little bit of a risk in making sure that we are across that and managing that. Because if there is an influx of trying to deliver capital because we are behind, are we okay in that space? And I know that you are reporting on what has happened.
I guess we have the ability of pushing the term out on that debt. So if we drew it sort of looking in the 4 to 6 year bucket, then it's going to smooth out that liquidity issue because of the way we have to calculate that. So I guess we can manage it at the moment. The standby facility will assist on that because it essentially is pseudo cash that we're not then accessing, so we can use that in our calculations. So at this stage, I don't have any concerns, but we do need to keep an eye on it and manage it.
I think from a business perspective for council, it would be frustrating for the guys, I'm not berating anyone, frustrating for the guys that if we anticipated drawing a certain amount of debt and we didn't, because there are opportunities that occasionally pop up around forward start hedges and things like that, that we can't really action because you can't be sure that you're going to draw the capital. If there was better forecasting and a better understanding of it and we were running to that, then you might be able to take advantage of some of those opportunities. They're probably not there now, but as you recall, sort of 12 months ago, there was a real opportunity, what they call an inverse curve in the marketplace. You could have taken some. I'm glad you didn't, because you probably would now maybe overhedged. But you know, that kind of thing. The more accuracy you can get into your forecasting and your planning, the better, the more capable these guys will, or more ability these guys have to manage some of those opportunities. Okay? Okay. Now we'll move on. Just a minute. No, I've been, yep. No, you've done far too much. Well, that Audit and Risk Committee receives the quarterly Treasury report ending 31 December 2025. Moved Lydia, seconded Sophie. I'm having a lot of fun with this. Thank you. I'm not big. Okay, we will move on to the LGFA rotating credit facility. Is everybody happy to receive this report? Mover. Thanks, Trace. Seconded. Sam. Thank you. Busy man. Okay, let's move to that. Just an opening comment. You set a task, you get a better outcome, I think. That's
Yes, yeah. So I guess we were tasked with finding a way of addressing the liquidity issue without needing to borrow the debt and therefore mitigate the financing costs associated with that. LGFA have a standby facility which a lot of councils access. It is a much lower rate than what we can access commercially through Westpac, and obviously with the LGFA a lot more readily available. They've got I think it's over $1 billion in standby pool that is sitting there available, and it is currently not fully utilised by councils. So the accessibility is there. I guess if we look at the cost savings, I just reran the numbers this morning based on the latest update from LGFA. It would sort of be close to about 200k difference whether we debt fund it or fund it using, or like for liquidity purposes and window dressing, or use the standby facility. The fees are obviously a lot more palatable in that sense. and it's on a 14-month period, so therefore it's just on a rolling basis, and therefore can be used to, I guess, improve our cash position, which meets the LGFA requirements. So ultimately, they're giving us money to meet their own covenants, which is ironic, but also quite good from our perspective. And yeah, I guess from that point of view, it would be worthwhile considering. And my recommendation is to go down that path because of the cost-saving measures alone. And it also then gives you a fixed fee that you're aware of, makes it easier to budget for that cost and along those lines. So not sure sort of where the questions are going, but
Well, let's get the
go for it.
get it on the floor and open to questions. Any questions for the team?
Have we moved on to revolving credit?
Yeah.
Okay.
No questions? Annalisa, sorry. Yeah.
Sorry, I did have a question. One was at the 3.1, just around the committee's approval. So this committee will be making a recommendation to council. We won't have delegation to be making the approval, will we?
No.
Have you been given delegation?
No.
No, so it's just a recommendation.
This is a recommendation to council.
Yeah.
Sorry, just on that, the standby facility requires the approval of the mayor and one councillor. So, question to this committee is this committee comfortable to approve or recommend that a councillor and the mayor approve the standby facility with the LGFA?
I'm comfortable to recommend, if we're recommending the facility, we will be recommending the authorisation. That's how we'll word it, but we certainly can't approve it. It's got to go through council. It is a change to our funding. Okay.
Yeah, my understanding is that actually we would be making a recommendation to council. So the resolutions that are there could actually just be changed that Audit and Risk recommends that council, and then,
So we're,
the 2 and the 3, because,
when we get to it, I'll just amend it slightly.
yeah, great.
Yeah.
And then actually council decides that, and then that is the delegate the signing of that. So my understanding is yes, we can't make that decision.
Oh, look, I'm really happy if council wants to delegate to Audit and Risk the whole business of council, but then we're in. But no, the reality of it is that this is not an approving authority; it's a recommending authority. Okay.
That's
So
right,
when we do it in the future, guys, just make sure that it's a kind of we recommend to council or otherwise. Yeah.
For good process, the second signatory should probably be a elected member that's on the Audit and Risk Committee, rather than
I'm comfortable that you can be handled by the mayor at council, and one of you guys will put your hand up to do that. You'll sort that out. It would be unusual if we recommended it by unanimous decision here and you guys then send it away at council, but okay. Are there any questions though for the team? I have one. Why only 20?
Well, we have, 20 was suggested by PwC. However, we're open to your recommendation of what value would you be after.
I guess the question would be as to what extent you can push this and what advantage you can get from it.
Also, just to add to that, based on our current debt limits, current borrowing profile, current cash reserves, $20 million is consistent with the amount of cash that we're having to hold at the moment to meet the 120% liquidity ratio. So there is some science behind it, and as Dale mentioned, this is all factored into the recommendation made by staff and PwC.
Asked and answered. Good answer. I mean, if it was just a number we dreamed up, then my view would be push it harder. And you should consistently look at that as to ways you can be more efficient, because this is a good outcome. And it does mean that like you won't be sitting around on sort of $50-60 million worth of cash in the future if you can utilise this, you know.
Correct, and we'll consider this throughout the LTP process for the treasury management policy as well.
Yeah. But otherwise, really good outcome, guys. I mean, I like the fact that you got a no answer, but you actually had a rethink and thought, well, we can still get some benefit here. So keep challenging yourselves that way. That's exactly what you're supposed to do. Okay, there being none, we've been asked that Audit and Risk recommend that Council receive the local government funding authority standby facility report and recommend to Council that they approve the LGSA standby facility to the value of 20 million and recommend they authorise the Mayor and one councillor to sign the LGFA standby facility agreement. Have a mover. Thank you, Sophie. Seconded, Tracy. And that's by unanimous. Okay, now let's have a quick look. What have we got in timing here? 11:04, we can probably get a little bit more done. Sensitive expenditure. Acutely aware, Annalisa, you took us through 2 hours once without a break. No, Ellie is right on my case. She's quite bossy for her. We're going to clip round the ear in a minute. Yeah, I've got a bullying complaint. I'm just finding my paper. Sorry, Ali. We know who's in charge now, don't we? And it's not me. Okay, sensitive expenditure. Everybody happy that this, with this report be tabled? Have a mover. Annalisa. Thank you. Second, Lydia. Okay. Becca. Excellent.
Good morning, everybody. This is the first sensitive expenditure report that we've had, so I am really keen to be able to go through it. Hopefully everybody has read it, and I'm keen to get some feedback of what else that you would want from this going forwards. It's been driven from the Deloitte report from last year, and it covers the expenditure for the Chief Executive, the Mayor, the board members and elected members. It is for the two periods here. One is for the first quarter, 1st of July through to the end of September, and also the 1st of October to the 31st of December. And from here on in, it will be a quarterly report if that's what you want to see. It has been designed to align to the OAG guidance, which covers off the principles of justifiable business purpose, impartiality, made with integrity, moderate and conservative, transparent and with proper approvals. And obviously noting there are a number of next steps going forwards for the improvement, because this is a start point and we're going to build on it. So other than that, are there any questions?
Questions? Sam? Oh, sorry, Tracy, you had...
Thank you, Eho. I'm curious as to why my phone bill's more than everyone else's. I know it's only $1, but what am I doing wrong?
It may well be a rounding error. But yeah, most of them, there are some really strange things that I've been trying to work through, but there are some, it depends when the phone was given out, if there's any adjustments that have been made. So for the $1, Sam, I will check it out for you and let you know, but it might just be a rounding.
I'd like to go on record as saying I'm happy to refund the $1.
Collect that later, will you, Alison?
With interest?
Okay, Tracy.
Becca, and if there were others who've been helping, thank you.
Sorry.
Thank you for this. Oh, a momentous time in council.
All right.
That's
A light-hearted moment. Thank
We've
you.
become
Sorry, Tracy.
transactional. I want to thank you, and this is the part where us as representatives of the ratepayers is really important, and that while the total may seem small in the overall scheme of the money that goes through council, the transparency message so that people can see what is and isn't being spent by people. It also protects the people named on this from what may, the rumour mill, but it protects the organisation and it builds the trust and the integrity in the organisation. So I'm just really thrilled to see how quickly this has come together, and I know that I've been somebody who's been very vocal on sensitive expenditure, so I wanted my voice to be heard thanking you, and it's great and it's incredibly readable. It's very easy to find the information. It's a layperson's read, so thank you for that.
Sam.
Sorry, I know. Getting eviled because you're only allowed to go around the table once. The other thing I really wanted to touch on is great work, team, for the elected members' refreshments. That's a fair chunk of change when we add it up. That's come down. And the other thing is, could you speak to why Lydia and I are significantly cheaper for conference and memberships?
As depressing as it sounds, Sam, it's because you're young. It's an under 40. I did check that out beforehand. I was expecting that, but yes, you are. It's because you're under 40.
Okay. Annalisa, bring us into land.
So I've got no questions or comments about the transactions as such, but which you alluded to, Becca, around just OAG guidelines, right? So policy's been rewritten to make sure that it aligns to OAG guidelines. The covering paper makes reference to that again, so that's really good, just to keep, I guess, reinforcing to the governance level that managements have a level of confidence that we are abiding by those guidelines. But I guess my question is almost the educational piece to, I guess, our kaimahi or our, new employees coming into the organisation, maybe not from, public spending kind of experience. How do we make sure that they kind of understand the expectations of those guidelines quickly?
There's a huge amount of work going into with the learning and development team around how we are going to address this, because there's a lot of work that's got to go into how do we get the message out there and make sure people are trained. So there's a big program of work looking at how we can get some information out now, and then what is the ongoing program. So the first things we're looking at is the videos that we have got from OAG already that will actually detail out the different types of expenditure. I believe that is in the next couple of months, if not before, that we'll get those out, and then we'll start the program of communication, and then the training will start in earnest. So although it's not going to be completed, it's going to be an ongoing process. It will become mandatory training for all staff, and it means that we'll have to do all current staff as well as all new employees.
Thank you. And I'm also pleased to say that the approvals process and one over documentation process is working, because I've already seen the Mayor's expenditure report, so system works. Thank you. Just a bit of observation, these sort of things are managed if they are exposed like this. So thank you, appreciate it, Beck. Thank you. All right. Resolved that the Audit and Risk Committee receives a sensitive expenditure report for the half year ending 31 December 2025. Do I have a mover? Thank you, Annalisa. Seconder? Sam, thank you. Favour, aye. Thank you. Look, we're going to go to the Legal and Compliance Report 2. And then I think we'll take a break before you, David, join us for a cup of coffee. Then we'll come back and do the... it's all right. Okay. Welcome, team. Dominic. Lovely to see you. Back again.
You actually do have a Sophie here, not a Sonia.
I know.
So we've got Sophie here too. And so good morning team. Look, I'll take the first half of the report and then pass to Sophie. We're going to take legal and compliance as read. And I guess for this group, the update from the legal function in particular is we are moving and have really moved from our establishment phase, which was probably that first 12 months of the team, into a really embed phase of who we are and what we're doing here. So we've had a pretty busy 4 months since we last reported to ARC. That shows up in our numbers, that shows up in the not just savings, but the number of matters that were closed through Christmas and the New Year. And what we've started to see is a pattern of queries starting to emerge that we've now been able to start developing that legal training program that we are rolling out with heads of department consultation. So we're looking at some of those really key things that we focus on here. So our radical transparency by making sure we've got Lagoima right, and working on not just providing the update to the team here, but ensuring that we are doing a thing once and getting benefit out of it twice by having that then available for our new starters as part of our legal our legal toolbox and landing page that people can access. And that's sort of one of the big ones that we'll be looking at, which ties into our ledge update, is that disputes tribunal training and how we support the business to go forth and attend the disputes tribunal without their lawyers in a way that they feel supported and really manages the risk for council, as potentially we will see more of those things coming out with an increased cap on DT claims. We'll talk to claims and those sorts of things in PX if there are any specific questions, but that's about the legal team. I'm happy to either take questions on that or we can pass to Sophie for Lagoima and policy.
Let's just questions on that particular.
Sure.
There may not be, but let's just. Okay, all right. Awesome. Right, we'll move to Lagoima.
So I guess just a couple of brief comments. So you'll see in the report that there's little commonality in terms of themes of request, but actually tying into what Dominique has just said about disputes. Often the Lagoimas relate to individual customer complaints. So where there is an ongoing complaint, there is also often a Lagoima request. Something that we are actually seeing is that a lot of requests are clearly AI generated. So that's actually meaning that the length of the request is increasing, and that's putting a lot of strain on our team, particularly in the infrastructure and property space and the development and growth space. So that's making it difficult. We are still managing them. You'll see in January there was double the amount of requests, but we are still managing them. And we're looking to move potentially to a new platform for managing our Lagoima requests to make it easier for the team to gather information. In terms of ombudsman complaints, again, no adverse findings. Whenever we're responding to Lagoima complaints, we do bear in mind that where it is possible that there will be an ombudsman complaint, but obviously we've still got a good record on ombudsman findings there. In terms of the policy review program, I obviously overheard the discussion earlier, so we've lost a resource recently who was working on the policy review program, so we're working at resourcing that, but essentially the philosophy of the team is that there does need to be a bit of a sweep of policies, we know that, and so it's a matter of just progressing that and having the resource and time to do that. So that's definitely the direction. I'll hand back to Tom.
Thank you. Questions? Rose.
I just wanted to ask about the uploading of Lagoima answers and stuff to the website, and if that's, I presume that's done together with another department, the digital whatever-y people. Is that moving at a pace that is noticeably assisting, from your perspective, assisting you from a perspective of, do people know to go and look on the website? Are we doing enough to get people going and looking at the Lagoimas on the website? Sorry for my lack of clarity. Are we doing enough to get people going there to see if their question has been answered, to prevent you guys being bogged down in stuff that you've already answered? Or is there something that you feel can be accelerated or better resourced to improve that? Did that make sense?
Yes, it does. So I think there's a threefold answer. The first is that the majority of Lagoima responses aren't ones that we publish, particularly where they relate to an individual complaint or an individual property or an individual. The second is the only thing that we do to publish our the responses is to put them on the website. We've sort of structured the page in such a way that hopefully people will see that there are published responses and go there first before they go to the form. But other than that, we haven't done anything. We could do some comms perhaps to let people know that those published responses are there. And then the third point was that we do it in batches. So obviously we're constantly doing Lagoima responses, so they get uploaded to the website directly from our team. We've actually got access to do that. So we do them in batches, I think, every couple of weeks.
I was going to make the comment also that if it is already published on our website, we can just point people to that it's already published. That's the only response you need to give. So it's a shortcut as well for us. So even if it's not used up front, it can definitely be used by our team to shortcut that response process and give an immediate response and a link.
Yeah. Okay. I guess what I'm saying is that in order for you to give that response to go to the website, you have to locate and do all of that there is one there. And I'm just wondering if there is another step through comms or another part of the business to assist with that. People are going to Lagoima, right, Sam? You know, where people are going to Lagoima, we're never going to stop that, even if they've been answered before. But I was just wondering from a perspective of you effectively doubling up. That's all.
There is a curiosity here. I mean, if they're using AI to generate it, you can use AI to reference them because say, well, that was asked and answered 6 months ago kind of conversation. That would be an opportunity.
That's part of moving to the better way of managing our Lagoimas. Actually, we can get an AI workflow in there, but there's a bit of digital work that needs to be done to make that happen. So,
look, I don't have a question, so I'm breaking my own rules, but since Bruce has set the tone, I'll take full...
Oh, we chat about that later.
I'll let myself go here. I think that this is actually, this paper is a really good news story. And I think that when you look in this paper, you can see the value that actually our in-house legal team are giving this organisation is the awesome news story here. And so it's a thank you from all the work that you do and also being on call for any of us that are needing advice through this. And I feel the pain for you with the AI has turned everybody into experts and lawyers. And, you know, at times I'm CC'd into those Lagoimas and you can see the length of them that you are getting and so I don't envy you in the response to those because that's particularly difficult, whereas actually if we just ask what you're asking rather than using AI to generate a 1,000-word document. And I note in here, the policy, and it's the conversation that we had earlier this morning and around that, you know, all these policies exist and, you know, there is risk with implementation and then embedding them into the organisation. And so, I note that you are resourced down to do that work and it is something that is sitting there and you have all of that. So I look forward to all those policies coming forward.
I'm okay with those sorts of comments, Lydia. The reality of it is, though, guys, is that your area is, you know, a little bit of the ambulance at the bottom, and so you know, when all else sort of kind of doesn't work for us, you end up dealing with the tail of it. And part of a KPI of success here is actually doing less around the litigation and clearing your Lagoimas, and you know, so it's a velocity issue. So when we see a report which actually says, you know, we're down on that area, it suggests that Steve, your teams are doing pretty well at the top end, which is kind of helpful. All right, thank you. Just resolve that Audit and Risk receive the legal and compliance report. Have a mover. Lydia, seconder. Sophie, thank you. Right, we'll take a break. cup of coffee, bang on, and then we'll come back for you, David, if that's all right. Thank you. Go to go. Welcome back. I think we're heading for a 12:30 finish, so and we're bang on time. Internal audit. Internal audit report is there. Do I have someone move that we accept that? Thank you, Sam. Busy man. Seconder. Tracy, I see you nodding. Thank you. All right. Over to you, Dom. No?
I'm literally just here to add numbers. I'm going to pass to Sonia and David, actually.
Oh, really? Okay. Well, you're on my papers. You're the first name, so we'll go to Sonia then.
Cool. Thank you so much again. So this is the second year of the internal audit program, and it's progressing well. We've just completed the privacy review, and the procurement review is well underway, so that will be reported next committee meeting. We've attached the, on this paper, we've got all the public reported internal actions from previous reports, so they're there for your information. And then we've also got a PX paper later with the other items listed as well. We've suggested there that we move to exception reporting going forward, but you'll always have this paper to refer back to for all the open items, and if you do request details on other items, we can always do that as well. But that's our suggestion, is that we do exception reporting going forward. So I'd just like to take the opportunity to thank Deloitte for their work again.
Just before we go to Deloitte's report, are there any general questions in relation to the internal audit report? Any comments? Okay, just one from me. Great report. About the only thing I like to see in these, in terms of the clearance program, is like a time frame for clearance. So you can see them inching along a time frame, or you can see them galloping along a time frame. And if they're inching along, then we probably want to have a talk about why they're inching along to clear. Okay, that's about the only thing I like to see. All right, thank you. All right, being no more comments, then we'll go back to you, Sonia, and we'll for the privacy review.
Thank you. So yes, David and his team have carried out the internal audit on privacy. So last year we did a targeted review on some privacy breaches, and then decided to bring forward the privacy review looking at our whole framework. So that is what David and his team have done, and I'll ask him to talk to the report that you have hopefully all also read. Thank you.
Thank you. Welcome, David. Good to see you again.
Yes, good morning, good to be here. Let's hope this gets better from turning up and my phone going off within 30 seconds. So, I'll take the report as read, give a bit of context, as I usually do, highlight some of the key findings, then we'll open up for questions. I think the first important piece of context is that this is a really hot topic amongst a lot of our clients, and there are two reasons for that. One is that privacy breaches are getting an awful lot more publicity these days. You're seeing them in the papers a lot more regularly. The second is that the law is changing quite materially on the 1st of May this year with IPP3A, which expands quite significantly your requirements in terms of mandatory notification for when personal information is collected indirectly. So that broadens the scope of the Act quite considerably. And there's more chat around should the Act be bolstered with civil penalties, because that's the case in Australia and other jurisdictions, and we don't have that here. So it's a lot. There's a lot of noise around it at the moment. I think it's really important for organisations like local councils, just because of the sheer amount and breadth of personal information you do collect, and the number of ways in which that gets into the organisation. So that need for consistent processes is really important, and we commend management for bringing the review forward on the basis of those 3 breaches that we reported on at the last time. You'll see the overall conclusion on page 153 highlights that the intent and leadership commitment are there, and I want to emphasise that point up front. It was really clear to us that the leadership recognises this is a really important issue, and there's an awful lot of work underway already, and so I just want the report to be read in that context. They also super engaged and responsive with us throughout the review. You can see that, I think, from the detailed management responses and the way in which they're tackling our recommendations. There's some quite tight timelines that they're holding themselves to. It's not one of those reports where you see, oh, we're going to do it in 18 months. So I do think they've taken on board everything. The second half of the conclusion talks to the main theme of the report, which I think it's all about how the policies that are in place are translated into practice and embedded into the organisation, so that you've kind of got, it's in people's thoughts every day, the decision making through people and their awareness of it and processes. So kind of at a high level, that's where we're at. Page 154, we're a big four consulting firm, so of course we have our own framework, but we have Appendix E shows how that framework matches and marries up to the 13 principles of the New Zealand Privacy Act. So that was the framework on which we based the review. I'll talk through the four positive observations that we highlighted, and then we'll run on to the five findings. The first of those is about the digital transformation initiatives in place. So that reflects the proactive steps management are taking to strengthen privacy controls and integrate those privacy by design principles, so you're thinking at it right at the start of the process. Second talks about that privacy work plan, which is a really significant piece of work in progress. Again, demonstrates management's commitment to uplifting privacy maturity of the organisation. The third is a bit more detailed. Over on page 155, we talk about some very specific things in place, like the privacy inbox, the triage process and the privacy register. And the last one's probably the most important one, that sense of a growing awareness and engagement of staff. So the training initiatives that have been undertaken have resulted in a lot more queries, so people are thinking about it a bit more. And to me, that's a really encouraging point. The bottom of page 155 shows our overall conclusion, which is at a 2.5. I think the thing to note about that is that 3 is a reasonably high benchmark, because in our definition, 3 has the phrase compares favourably to other models. And so you're really close to getting there. We would expect, and based on similar work we've done at organisations, that's where we'd expect you to be. But implementing these recommendations will comfortably get you to that 3, probably up to a 4. So I just wanted to highlight that before we talk about the findings in general. 3 high, 2 moderate findings. Again, that theme around increasing the depth and strengthening the standardisation of systems and controls across a number of areas. I'll just talk about the 3 highs and then I'll pause. So the first one talks about needing to increase the detail around the privacy framework. So you've still got specific areas such as privacy impact assessments, breach responses, collection, retention, disposal of personal information that are being applied inconsistently. The second talks about key processes needing to be fully embedded, and we specifically talk about customer-facing forms and online submissions, and incomplete inventory, inconsistent privacy impact assessments and breach management processes. And then the last high one is a very technical one around security controls and monitoring. So that's much more a kind of a technology piece around privacy monitoring and role-based access control, needing to improve that. And then, there were the 2 moderate ones on the third-party risk management framework, which will need to be looked at really carefully as IPP3A comes into place, and then getting some real clarity around privacy management and accountability through the organisation. I will pause there for any questions.
Annalisa.
I was going to have time to have this up. So you started, thanks David, started your corridor around, this is a hot topic, definitely is a hot topic, right? Like every week, especially in the public sector and local government sector, there's some kind of major privacy breach added to obviously the change in the legislation. Interesting that we've just had a very in-depth conversation around risk management and policies and frameworks and the importance of adhering to them all. But as your first bullet point, I'm wondering whether this has been softened slightly, because I'm never really a fan of having a high-rated finding and then it's about a policy or a framework. Because if you think of the conversation we just had, we don't have a policy or a framework, or we're working on it. It doesn't really sound like it's, it's too serious. But then when we've rated it as a high, it's not so much about the fact we don't have a framework, David, is it, or the policy? What you're saying is actually we're just not doing what we need to be doing. I've kind of come back to your point earlier, Bruce, around codifying good management or good practice. The framework kind of guides us and tells us what to do, but what's my question to you, David? Is that first bullet point almost, have you softened that, or how serious is that? Are you telling us that we're just not doing what we need to be doing?
I think it's the risk, and then has it crystallised, and where does it sit on that scale, depending on that. And I think because we saw those issues, the PIAs, breach response protocols, the collection and retention, transparency of personal information not being consistently applied, and then we had to think about, we could give you a big laundry list of all of that. What's the root cause? The root cause is there isn't that standardised guidance and the framework so people know what they should be doing. And so that's why it's that way round, I think. I agree, if it's the policy issue in itself, you go, should it be a high? But I think because we'd seen the evidence of the lack of that policy and framework coming through, that's why we rated it as high.
I'm not challenging the status of the high. I'm just, I think it should be a high, given I've also been working with breaches, and I think it is very serious. Is that we could have the best framework in the world, couldn't we?
Yep.
But we wouldn't actually be delivering on it. So I guess hearing what we're hearing, maybe it's a question to management, like how quickly are we going to be able to develop a framework and then try and get it embedded? It's almost like health and safety, and it's all that kind of good risk management stuff around how are we going to quickly be able to train our people and embed it, good practice across the organisation. We can design a framework. We can design a framework really quickly, right? But how?
I think interestingly enough,
embed it.
That's a question for the chief executive, I think, because the identifications occurred. The response is interesting. So let's hear it.
Yeah, look, I guess with our management recommendations, we've identified the steps that we need to take to respond to this. I guess this internal audit and the internal audit program as a result, as a whole, is directing us to all the areas we've got to focus in on. You've heard this morning around the privacy training for this group, but we've got to train pretty much everyone who uses a system or a process here. That is going to be a big task, but we've got to start somewhere. This is the basis of, once accepted, this report forms that platform from which we go from and come back to you with regular reporting on, are we closing these actions out? So once the committee's accepted it, then we put in our response and go, this is how long it's going to train 450 odd FTE. These are the ones that have critical roles, and this is how we're going to prioritise it. These are the things that we're going to do, and this is what will then form the regular briefing that comes back here in public. So you can see the progress we're making. You can see, have we got any issues, and we can then escalate any issues to you that we identify. So I think that's the way that we approach this, Annalisa, much like all of these reports have helped us with.
I think in this one, crucial to this is that your policy should be principles-based. Right, when I say principles-based, these are the pillars we stand on when it comes to policy, right? You will be able to make some very strong statements in relation to it. How that is dispersed will be obviously different in each area, but they will be dispersed around those key pillars, and they have to be. That'll go a long way, I think, David, to establishing the foundations for what you're doing. And I think that's what you're alluding to, is that you're not seeing those foundations. What you think is there's a broad awareness of it, and the things that are going good are responses to the broad awareness, but they're not foundational. And if you can't anchor them, So it comes back a bit, Sons, to the same conversation we had about strong policy without, and then you disperse it through those operational guidelines in each area, and they have to be, again, practical. Otherwise, people get drowned in it because they'll still have their day job to complete. So, but a strong statement on privacy around those foundational things will go a long way. The reason being is that it's top of mind at that point. And the first question they should ask is this sensitive? And if it is, the default should always be, it's sensitive. And then after that, you can then, and that's the kind of awareness I think you were driving at. I was a little bit more concerned, Annalisa, at the next two, which was there's this inconsistency in application. You get the principles right, that may start to fall into line a little bit, because the default should be to the conservative always in that respect, right?
Yeah, I completely agree, and I think that it was the inconsistency that we saw. So some areas doing it really well, other areas doing it not so well. So how can we bring everyone up to that level? But I agree that will be a really good starting point.
Yeah, I think the benefit I see from this, Steve, to your teams is that there is a heightened awareness in it. So you're not coming off a low base; you're coming off a pretty high base in relation to awareness. It's just, I think I'm aware of it, not entirely sure I know what it means. So therefore, setting those broad principles will bed it in. You're not coming off I don't think this is necessary conversation. This is a very necessary one, so in that respect. Any other questions for David?
Yep.
So.
Thank you very much. It's a really interesting report, but my question is actually one of the comments that you made just before when you were speaking to the report about about pretty much the impossibility of getting to a 5. And I guess the question that sparks is just a case of, on the one hand, why does it exist? But you always want something to strive for, and that's good. But what sort of things what's the usual sort of barrier to getting past the 4?
Because I'm an internal auditor and I could never give a 5. I think, if you implement that set of recommendations, you'll be pretty close to leading practice. Yep.
4.75. Yeah.
I have given a 4.5 once. That's as high as I've gone.
Awesome. Okay. Any other comments? I'm keen to see the plan around this one, Steve. Thanks for this, David. I think it was a good piece of work. Thank you. Okay. Thank you. Right. Resolved that the Audit and Risk Committee receives the internal audit report update and receives the privacy review and internal audit report. I have a mover. And Lisa, you're looking at me. Thank you. Sophie, seconded. Resolved. Okay, that moves us to resolution to exclude the public. Internal audit actions. Thank you once again, Alison. Oh, Jesus. I think we'll just receive those. Is anybody talking to these internal audit actions? They are for noting. Any comments? Oh, we do. Excellent. Annalisa?
Just quick comment. I know we've been talking about this for quite some time, so it's great to be recording all actions, including Audit New Zealand's year-end kind of findings. Just wondering whether, just for visibility, whether it would be good to have almost like a summary dashboard, we've got all the detail here, but actually all we need to know as a committee is, are we on track, right? Or are there any open items that should have been closed off greater than 90 days, and that's when we'll ask questions, but otherwise it is just information.
Yeah, so that is the plan going forward, that we will be bringing those exceptions to you in our dashboard. So the internal audit dashboard is currently under development, and so we're just building in some of those things now that we've got all of the data there, and we will be adding in the external audit ones once they've been agreed.
I'm assuming that the dashboard that I saw is a summary of these actions, but what it doesn't have is the progress conversation. Correct. And that's really important to us.
Yeah.
The reason why that's important to us is that often I've found in internal audit conversations there are impediments that are either real or not. The not real is they just didn't get around to clearing it. The real is there's a real impediment to clearing it, and it could be a resistance in a particular unit to something, and unpicking that is really valuable. Steve?
Yeah, look, I wanted to address that question too, because I think we did get a bit of feedback at the last meeting about getting a level of understanding as to what the actual actions were that were out, and to some degree I think it's important that the committee sees that on a regular basis, because there will be some timing issues, like setting up a new annual plan budget, for example, with a new budget coding structure is actually going to mitigate some of the challenges that we've identified through multiple GLs as an example. That's been identified as a previous risk. So it's to give the broader view and a detailed view. You may not need to engage in it, but what you can use is if you just want to have the dashboard, that's where you can access it. But if you want to find out why is this thing hanging around, what is hanging around, then you can get a sense, is it a system or process, or is it a time frame challenge, or is there a lack of attention? And I think it gives, by providing a report, it means that there's no lack of attention. So then it comes down to explaining what's the driver behind why we can't do things straight away. I also want to commend the team for pulling this together. And when we get more mature in our conversation around internal audit, and we start lining up the internal audit program with our risk program, we can then start to prioritise or emphasise matters that actually need to be dealt with quicker, and I think that's the benefit again of a little bit more daylight on this stuff.
A couple of things here, and it's good to hear you say that, Steve. The reality of it is, as we mature, what happens in an internal audit program, I've found in my experience, is that internal audit delivers a commentary around an area, and there are a number of needs improvement conversations going on. When you start monitoring the dashboard, you find the bits where management said yes, but really meant no. And that's really an interesting part of it, because what you find is as it matures, management become more comfortable saying no straight off the bat. But this bit's a sort of maturity issue, and I like it because it unpicks that kind of conversation that you then get an opportunity to interrogate that. And as you say, at the moment, our internal audit program is responding to the business in general. As our program around risk matures, we can start directing commentary in our internal audit program towards the statements that have been made in relation to risk. And I like that, because that means that we are starting to then interrogate our own work. And internal audit is the external advisor to this group, effectively, around, and you have to see it as not a black hat conversation, but an improvement opportunity. And if we're open to that, and we're honest with each other, and nobody comes here worried about what's going to be said to them, then we're going to this will be a continuous improvement opportunity. Okay.
Look, mine will be really quick. I actually like the reporting in here and in the tables. I think it's really clear, and it gives us the actions that are undertaken by staff. So showing actually what are you doing about this, and the process that's happening behind the scenes. But then I agree with Bruce, like that high level dashboard of actually this is where things are tracking, and then you can dive into it when you want to see the why. So I think that reporting is great, and I really appreciate that, because you can look into the ones that take particular interest around the dates there. So, but that's all I've got on that.
Sophie?
Yeah, much the same, to be honest. My thought was, I've got noted here, was in the comments on action progress box, like it would be helpful to have each of those comments with a date next to it. Like if it's a report that's from, or something that's added in for February, then great, then we can easily see what's been added at the next meeting, and track the progress that way. Because otherwise it's like, oh, I've got to go back and find a previous agenda to see whether that was old. Thanks.
I need advice, I think, from the chair and colleagues on what I'm about to suggest, because I may be in the wrong ballpark. But I see that we finish with evidence of action completion, and for me, I quite like to see us also having something about the evidence of implementation, success, change, that we're seeing something come from that, because it is one thing to complete a series of actions, but is it working?
If it's working the way it should become part of a BAU program that we should see continually occurring. We're not going to know if it's continually occurring until we do it again, which I think is that maturity conversation. So, guidance from the chair, we anticipate that we will expect to see an iteration which actually brings that improvement forward. But whether or not we go back and revisit it as an individual, unlikely. Will we revisit it? Probably, because these things circle around. But it may be 18 months, 2 years later that we do it again. And Lisa.
That's going to help you answer that question, Bruce. If we see Sonia's role as a line 2, we talk about the 3 lines of defence quite a lot, and our good frameworks, policies, processes, the way we do our mahi is line 1. If you see the internal audit and risk manager, probably got your title wrong, as line 2, so a little bit independent from the organisation, and then we see Deloitte as kind of line 3. So my experience of having internal audits delivered by independents, as such as Deloitte, as they produce a report, they have findings, management need to then resolve those findings. I've always been comfortable with the line 2 role, i.e. Sonia going to management, so going to Alison and her team, and with that tell me, show me approach. So it's like, Alison, have you closed out this finding? Yes, I have. Show me, give me something that tells me, and then happy for the line 2 role to close that out. So not having to produce another report or another, because that's her kind of role. And
But the proof of the pudding is always in that. Was the suggestion closeout effective? Is it made any difference? And you don't know that until sometime down the track. But that as we've sort of discussed, our opportunity here is for us to continually challenge that and look at that and say, okay, well, because our job here is to assist management improve the business, not just ask them to do 1,000 different things. And the reality of it is that as your organisation matures, Steve, they will get better at pushing back and saying, well, we don't actually think that's going to have any, I welcome the day when the team sits here and says, that suggestion from Deloitte or whoever actually won't improve the business of the council at all. In fact, all they're really doing is confusing the matter. And that's a maturity. And that means that we're actually doing our job properly. And the day that starts happening to you, you'll be delighted, because you'll start to see the functions the wheels start to move in terms of improvement. So that's kind of what it is. But my initial reaction to it, external advisors from the Big Four, they must know everything. And remember, I was a Big Four partner and I did know everything. No, I didn't. And the point is, that's right. The point is that I'm older and more mature. I knew I didn't. But the point is that they're making suggestions. You don't necessarily have to agree, because you know your business quite well, but they're still challenging your thinking. Okay? Sam. Oh, sorry.
Don't get in
Alison.
trouble.
I was just going to say something similar to you, and it goes back to how we respond to these things. It's not always, yes, we need to do X, Y, and Z, because as Steve just mentioned, going through the annual plan, we've got a much tighter set of chart of accounts. So why would we agree to do something we know is fundamentally going to change in 6 months' time? So you couch that response with, we do this point, but we're moving towards that. So if you were to do a subsequent audit, you're moving to the second part of how you responded to the original question, if that makes sense.
Can I also just add to your question there, Tracy? We look at internal audit and risk together, right? So when we are responding and getting updates from management, I'll also say, great, you've got new control there. Which risk are we responding to? So we will be providing that information into our risk updates and show that has that actually had an impact on our risk assessment and has that brought our residual risk down? So we'll bring that into the reporting and hopefully you'll see that in the coming months when these actions are completed.
Sam.
It wouldn't be an audit and risk with a sensitive expenditure without me asking this question. My screen's gone black. Is there a reason that for the date of sensitive expenditure training being so far out, has it got anything to do with us changing policy for the next financial year, or like, I just feel like I am concerned that we could have staff or elected members unsure of what their sensitive expenditure policy currently is, which I, to be honest, think that they should know.
So that date that we've got there is the completion date. So at the moment, Becca mentioned before that we're working with L&D. So we're covering off sensitive expenditure, anti-fraud and corruption, the clean-up of the codes, you know, all of those things together. So this training, it's actually a bigger piece of work. So we're getting started, and those videos and the behaviours that we're trying to embed, that will get started straight away. But this action, we're giving until the end of June to have some really good tangible outcomes of that. Yeah.
Awesome. Well answered.
Thank you. So we'll loop back again and just confirm the resolution already resolved, and now move to exclude the public. We're just going to give it a minute while we stop the live stream. just confirming in live stream there are no items of general business, and I'm really comfortable, but I always like at the end of the meeting just to reflect with the members as to the quality of the meeting and the improvements. So I might just do that. I might just do that from left to right. So Lydia.
Yeah, look, I thank you, Bruce. It's been a ride this morning, and you know, I go back to reflecting from November to now, and I think the space that we are in now is good, and that is lots of the work and that has been taken on board by staff to adapt the reporting. It's been the template reporting that we've seen, and so I think we're starting to see a huge improvement from our organisation and our reporting to committees and agendas. And for me, with the volume of reading that I have to do, it is very much appreciated to have those reports. I think the action items are really good and very clear of where we're going and what is happening, and that gives me a level of comfort in a governance role to know that this organisation has the actions under control. But yeah, that'll be from me. Yep.
Yeah, no, good hui, and I think for me it's always the I guess the appetite from management to want to continuously improve. Like even in the health, safety, and wellbeing space, if I think of back what we had 4 years ago, which was pretty light, which is probably being generous, and where we are now, we're pretty good, but yet the appetite is still there to want to do better. So, and that's across the organisation. So I think that's something to be pretty proud of from a cultural perspective.
Sophie?
Yeah, less is more. I'll probably just go with this feels productive, like we're moving in the right direction. There's always more that you can do, but it's good. It's really helpful to have the structure of the reports and the internal audits, you know, guiding that work. So,
good.
Yep.
Thank you. Trace?
Finishing early is always good, Bruce.
Doing my best.
I'd echo that. I think one of the reasons for fewer questions is reflective of the quality of reports that we got and are getting. That's really cool. I really want to be part of a high trust organisation with high accountability, and I want to be able to trust the information that comes to me and the people behind that information, and that's a direction that I think we're really moving in, and I think that bodes well for, as I said in a council meeting, that the reason I'm here is to help this organisation to be the best council in the country, not just the fastest growing. I think the first is a better goal for all the people inside here and outside here, and it feels like we're on track.
I concur with Councillor McLeod. I probably have asked less questions in this meeting than I usually do because, well, it's all there in black and white, which is awesome. I've never seconded so many things without putting my hand up or making a noise. But anyway, yeah, it's good to know that we've raised concerns in the past. They're now being presented. I did feel like on our first audit and risk meeting, perhaps stuff wasn't really sort of getting through, but now it's flooding through, which is awesome. So, whatever that's to, awesome. Let's keep it going. Thank you.
Steve?
Thank you for your feedback. I just want to acknowledge the work of the team because we have listened, we have responded, and it's great to get that feedback today from the committee. So thank you to everyone who's put the mahi in over the last 4 months to get us to this point, to this feedback. So thank you.
Awesome. Ellie?
No real comments, but obviously we will invest that dollar wisely.
Just like to say we're economic, we've made a buck. There we go. Look, I'm really delighted and just want to echo the team, but it comes down to the direction of travel, your team, Steve, and the realities of what we're trying to achieve here, which is that the Audit and Risk Committee here is by and large here to provide an oversight in the compliance areas, but really try and supercharge continuous improvement and the management of risk in that area. And it was really benefited by some pretty capable and pretty good papers today. So thank you. And also some good contributions from the team as well, which was positive towards that continuous improvement. Okay, thank you. We'll go to the closing karakia. All together? Oh, did you? Uni here, te po, kia wata, ai ai,
Waitia.
ka pai.